listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
And we are officially recording.
We are starting with a thumbs up. Thumbs up. 7-up, thumbs up.
These damn Macs with their little, like, I can do this. Dun, dun, dun. There's like so many different emoticons.
Fireworks.
There's
fire.
Do you remember the first time that happened and how I freaked out? I was like, what is happening right now?
The excitement.
It was very good. How are we doing, friend? This is Joe Vitale. And that's Jamie Wonko, and we are the Balancing Act podcast on human content. And we are so happy that you are joining us again for yet another episode. So what's new, friend? How are we doing?
We're doing great. We are doing great.
We are in the depths of winter.
It's cold. It's really cold.
Yes, we were just talking about, like, why do I live in a place where the air hurts my face? I need to live in a warmer place where the sun is shining and the birds are chirping, and it's like my body's not made for cold; it's made for Margaritaville.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
You know, this Cinderella style of life where you just open the windows in the morning and everybody's just, tweeting around you.
Yes, the birds are chirping. Got you. We got a fun one today. I am very excited for our guest that is waiting in the wings, who also is apparently, freezing in Midwest cold. So we're very happy to bring her in. Hello. Oh, let me hit the right button. Hello, Courtney Varner. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you guys?
Welcome, Courtney. Thank you very much for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you for coming to join us tonight. We were like up and down and inside out and what time and that time. And I misread my text messages, because I'm doing 17 things at the same time. So it was like,
balance.
Now?
Yes.
Oh, no, yay, now.
Yes.
Stars aligned.
Yes. And we, of course, are in New Jersey. And Courtney, you are in Missouri. As they say. Isn't that how they say it? Do they say Missouri?
Is that certain parts?
Certain
it's
parts.
Missouri.
I have been to Missouri or Missouri, depending on where you are and who you're talking to.
You might have been to Missouri.
I might have been. And we were also talking before we popped on about how Midwest cold and Northeast cold are two completely different things. Like, it is bone chilling, wind through your body, cold in the Midwest. So God bless you for dealing with this weather. And you, on one of your recent posts, you little social media star, is you were talking about how, like, you hadn't been in school for a little while because of the weather and all that stuff. So how is it going out by you these days?
Yeah. I'd say this has probably been, in more recent years, one of our worst winters. My district has 3 built-in snow days, and we burned through all of those right after winter break with our winter break 2.0. And so now we are doing the virtual learning days, and we've already had a couple, and it's snowing right now. So I have a feeling we might have another one tomorrow.
That is interesting that you have virtual learning days. Because
we do. I think the state, I forget how many the state allots. It's like 5 or 6. So once we burn through those, I guess we tack on to the end of the school year, which sounds awful. But hopefully, I'm hoping this is our last one because I'm done.
Yeah.
Yes.
My sister recently moved to South Carolina, and they've had they had a storm in August that kept them from school. And then they had a little bit of ice, which just, they don't do there. So it threw everyone. And they did reach the limit of their virtual learning days. So that was really my first understanding that states have an allowance for that now. And then also they have a cap on how many days they'll allow you to do that. So it's interesting from place to place. We have 3 days built in, and thus far haven't used any. And but we every week it's like there's a storm and it's 17 inches, and then it's and it blew out to sea. So it just keeps happening. One nice big, I think Joe and I don't agree on that. I would like one big wallop, but none, right?
I'd rather none. That's just me, because my favorite part of winter is when it's over. So that's my usual line. So yeah, it definitely is. We haven't had anything.
No,
got like a couple.
I always watch
delayed opening,
and it looks like it's always going your way. So
yeah, it was this most recent one. I was like, we're gonna get snowpocalypse, and then nothing. So it's also interesting that you mentioned about the virtual learning days, because we don't allow for that at all in New Jersey. We don't have that. So we have 3 built-in snow days, and then after that, they take away from like spring break and things like that. I know.
Has it happened? Have they taken?
It has happened.
Yeah.
Not recently. I can't say. I mean, again, I've been teaching in district for 26 years, so maybe. I mean, and maybe it's a day, maybe two at the most, because they don't extend our school year. We go all the way until I don't know, June 57th. At least that's what it feels like. But we go to pretty much the end of June. I don't know what you guys do
Oh,
out
wow.
there.
We're usually out. It used to be before Memorial Day. Recent years, it's been like we go the week after Memorial Day for the fun week. But
Got you.
yeah.
And
I
then
think
you go
they're
back
trying
in
to get us there.
August.
And yeah, we're back at the end of August.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we're having you on is because I have seen your content. By the way, if you can give our guest a follow, hi_it's_me_Mrs. with a period _V. We will link it in the description below.
I'm sorry.
That is quite all right. But I first have to ask you, because I saw your content, probably was before Christmas, and you had this like what middle school students would say at my funeral. And I sent it to everyone I know who teaches middle school. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what it's like. And I'm also going to link to that in our description. And maybe I'll even try and cut it into our broadcast here. So if we cut right now, we're going to that clip. But it was just fantastic to be like, it was just the camera facing up at you, and you had the hooded sweatshirt on with the pimple.
You've got to have the
stickers.
pimple patches.
I mean, and it was just you leaning over, and be like, I need to charge my Chromebook, and it was just people just don't understand that that's 100% what it's like on a daily basis.
That was the funny part. Was it made me realize that kids are universal. Like, it doesn't matter where middle schoolers are, that apparently they're all exactly the same. So
yeah, and it's a series, if I'm not mistaken. You had a couple of those, right?
I did. Yeah, people kept sending like other things that would, kids would say, and I'm like, oh man, I got to do a part 2. Oh man, I got to do a part 3. So yeah, I had seen someone else do something similar, and I'm like, but middle schoolers are so specific, and
yes,
sometimes fun to make fun of, but in the best way. I mean, I absolutely love my job, and I love the people I work with. So they do the goofiest things, and it's fun to call them out sometimes.
Very true. And we didn't ask, what do you teach and for how long and all that fun stuff. So.
This is year Sweet 16 for me.
Woo! All right.
Yeah, I can drive. And I currently I'm teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA. So I did 7th grade ELA for the longest time and did 8th grade for a year. And then now I'm in a personalized learning model, which has been really a big undertaking, but a lot of fun. And so I have 6th graders, and then I have 2 classes of 7th and 8th graders mixed together.
Oh, wow. That's
yeah.
Interesting.
It's cool.
What is a personalized learning model?
So there's different academies within our school, the way it's set up. And so the parents and the kids choose which way of learning they would like to do. And there's the traditional way that works really well for kids, how we've always done middle school. There's some that are more flexible pacing. There's one that's more, design based, where they're choosing classes more frequently. And then ours is kind of built on this gradual release of responsibility that hopefully by 8th grade, they're kind of coming up with their own ideas of what they want to learn, presenting their own learning experiences to us. And then we okay it or say, maybe we could do it this way, and just give them more opportunities for project-based learning and working together and kind of doing some of the things that, you feel like sometimes kids, they want to learn about something, but they don't have the time in the school day to fit it somewhere. So we try to offer that.
That's really interesting, especially at the middle school level, because we're we're dealing with a very diverse group of students, emotionally, behaviorally, for a variety of different reasons. I mean, Jamie and I have taught middle school my entire career. I think, Jamie, you had 1 year at elementary, I think.
Right? But it was upper, so it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It was 5th grade, so it wasn't like different school environment and pacing, but not like a huge difference of age. But
it's so interesting that some of the things you said, like, oh, middle school kids are the same, like across the country, and the things and that they say and that they do, and that really is so true from the different people we've had on the podcast about what they say about the students in their class. There's a lot of Skibbity Toilet Ohio Rizzler. There's a lot of Yeah, I know. It's amazing. And there's a lot of like brain rot stuff and things that
I
they
guess they're
say.
all watching the same videos. Like they're all
They
following
are.
the same TikTok accounts, and it's feed the beast.
Yes. They are watching all of those things, but I gotta add, like, again, that series where, like, I think the one that got me the most was when you leaned in, you were like, "Do you have any Takis?" And I lost it. Like, I was literally my wife's like, "What are you laughing at?" I was like, "You have no idea how good this," and my wife, of course, she got it, but she was like, "Oh, okay," but, like, didn't get it because of how relevant it was.
I know. Sometimes
I
I'll show my husband like a draft of something. He's like, okay. But like he doesn't get it, and then I get all like, "Oh, should I post it?" sort of thing, and then I do, and then of course teachers are like, "Yes!" So, yeah, I mean, I guess it is kind of a specific genre, but
Oh, it fits. Recently, you also put uh, one of your recent posts was hysterical. It was like you in the gym, and you were like, you holding up a piece of paper, and like moving it over, and it's like, oh, I'm preparing for the things to do in my job, and it's like, whose name is this?
yeah,
Or jumping over the stuff in the gym, like the cones, and then it's preparing you to jump over the various Chromebook charger wires because they're like akimbo all
tripwires
over the room.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to ask, like, how do you come up with like a bit or a sketch? Like how does that process work for you? Like, does something just to happen in class and it pops into your brain? Like, yep, that's what I'm doing
Sometimes
later.
it's just like, yes, a conversation with a kid or, a conversation with a coworker. And, it in my brain, it turns into a little skit. Sometimes even just content when I'm scrolling through, if there's an audio or something that I'm like, how can I make that teacher? Or, something like even the gym one, like I saw a mom version of it and I was like, oh, that's funny. But I'm like, oh, but there's some very specific exercises I could do in my middle school classroom. So, um, yeah, it's like, you can get ideas and make it middle school.
What is it? What is the thing about flattery? Like, flattery is the sincerest form of
Yeah,
something or other. What is it?
imitation. is the
Imitation is
sincerest
the
form.
sincerest form of flattery, right? Yeah, so, like, especially if something that you see might work,
Mhm.
and adapt in your classroom. I mean, the content, if you're a teacher and you're not following Courtney, there is something wrong with you, and you must now do it.
You're so
Um,
kind.
yes, well, it's hysterical, and
Oh,
a
thank you.
lot of the stuff you post makes me laugh, and I found myself, like, sharing it with other people. I was like, "Ha, this is what it's like. This is what it's like. This is exactly what it's like. It's like this. It's
Sure.
like this. This is what it's like each day." Yeah, it's great.
So, Courtney, your school is just 6th, 7th, and 8th grade,
Mhm.
and the kids have lockers?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so some of them travel around and some of them don't, depending on what part of the school they're in. Is that right? Or do they
Yeah,
all?
they still travel around. They still go to
Okay.
electives, obviously lunch, PE, those classes. And most of them now, like post-COVID, most of them just use backpacks. But it is nice to have the lockers, especially this time of year for the coats and all the other things. But yeah, most of them just carry backpacks around for the most part.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
but there's
Yeah,
the
our
lockers
kids
are
would
still
never be
nice.
allowed. Yeah, our kids would never be allowed to carry their backpacks around. They would that right. That would be a safety issue, I think, with
Mhm.
what might be in there. Or I mean, that's my understanding that it would be a safety
Yeah.
Yeah,
issue,
that's
but
kinda how they
how to
started
get
it.
around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Prior
you
to COVID, they weren't allowed, but once we came back and it was like they couldn't gather at their lockers, it became the thing, and it just never really went
Yeah.
back to.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah, now we're hybrid lockers and backpacks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Um,
So
so
you've taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Do you have one that you
I was gonna
prefer
I
over
was gonna
Oh,
others?
ask that
man,
too.
that's hard. This last year and this year is the first time I've taught 6th grade in a long time. I taught 6th grade my very first year of teaching. Didn't know what I was doing in any way, shape, or form. So, um, that was hard to gauge there, but they're all this is like when my kids ask me like, "Who's your favorite kid at home?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I can't choose which child is my favorite, but they all have like different things that I love about them. So, I did 7th grade for the longest time, and so I think that has kind of a big place in my heart because they're like the awkward middle child, like they're not totally innocent babies like the sweet little 6th graders. Um, and then the 8th grade, I taught 8th grade for the first time 2 years ago, and I was like, "Well, this is cool too, like, these people can, they're like young adults that can reason and you can have really great conversations with. So
Yeah.
it's hard to choose. Ooh.
Such a
Seventh grade.
such a politician answer. But you went with
I
7th grade?
know, I know. It's because I'm indecisive. I can't decide anything. And I hate conflict.
It seems like 7th grade got the secret vote, but we won't tell anybody.
Right, well,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's just by default because I did spend like 13 years, doing 7th grade.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
I have some difficult classes from time to time, and like this year, they'll be like, "Oh, we your favorite class?" And I'm like, "Yup." I'm like, "Who's your favorite class?" They're like, "Period 1." It's period 1. Just so you know, like period 1. Period 1's a favorite class. You want to be
You're winners.
Yep, they're the winners. They're leaders in the clubhouse. They are by far they're my favorite this year. Normally, it's like, "Oh, but they're all my favorites." This year, period 1.
Do you guys have block scheduling or do you see like 8 periods a day or you
We had block scheduling for
Oh boy,
forever.
20
Um,
years?
yeah, well, I had taught reading writing workshop and that was so we were on a period schedule. So in the early 2000s we were periods. And they blocked reading writing workshop first. So it would be like period 1 and 2, you would keep the same kids.
Mhm.
And then it sort of morphed into this, like around probably like 07, 08, it morphed into the entire school going
Yep.
into a block schedule. But the kids had full year math, full year language arts, and then half year science, half year social studies. And then, of course, like the cycle classes. Some of that got a little bit out of control, but we had about an hour and a half per block, so 4 blocks a day. Our high school's block went to block, so it was a good. And then 2 years ago, they changed it and went to. So this is our second year with periods. We have 6 periods, and they're 1 hour each, and the kids have language arts and math and social studies, science, all full year for 1 hour. I think the biggest loser in this setup is language arts.
Really?
I agree.
Just
I
an
also
hour is not enough time to do
Yeah.
reading and
Yeah.
writing. It's just not. But
I also think that I mean, I don't want to be make any controversial statements, but I think one of the bigger losers in this are the kids, because I think that in our district, and I'm not, and you're doing something for the first time. There's bound to be speed bumps along the way. A lot of the electives that they added, because like, oh, they wanted more electives, they wanted the kid to have more choices. Well, a lot of the electives that they added are academic. It's journalism, it's creative writing, and there's nothing wrong with those electives.
Mhm.
But we now went from a period where they had block scheduling, where they had like 3 main classes, and then their workload was a little bit less, and now they have their 4 core subjects plus an elective, and some kids have a lot more to do at home in regards to homework than they did in years previous. And I don't think anyone is really looking at that or tracking that data in our district to see what's happening, or like, we just don't have the teachers that have the certification to teach other fun electives. Like I would love for them to have wood shop or cooking, and we also don't have the facilities for that either.
no.
The high schools don't have it, but they added like dance and theater arts, and that's great. But some kids aren't dancey or or theater artsy. Okay. Like if you put me in dance class, like when I was in middle school, I would have been in the guidance office like, nope, no, I need to go
Do
somewhere
they get
else.
to choose though? Nobody's getting shoved into. Oh, they don't.
Some
Ooh.
See, the thing is, like
You're
some
dancing.
kids, like if they're in band, they can take band because they kind of, not that they have to, but they should
Mhm.
because they're in band. And then like some kids' choices get watered down a little bit, or like what language they have and stuff like that. But like a lot of times they get choices, and sometimes those choices get blocked out because they have like an English teacher that might teach like 2 sections of the graphic novel class. But
Mhm.
then if it doesn't work in their schedule because of their IEP or their classification, or they're in honors or not in honors, like then it doesn't work. And then they get stuck in classes that they might not. I mean, yeah, great. It's granted, it's awesome to be exposed to other things that you might enjoy, but like, I don't want to dance. And
I know. I've been rallying for a new elective called trampoline, where they just jump on mini trampolines. Because I think there's a lot of kids that could just rebound for a little while. It's just bounce.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I write the syllabus for that?
Yeah.
I mean, bounce the bouncing. I mean,
So unit 1,
bounce, right? I mean, it's like,
jumping.
you might be a bit now. New
don't fall off.
New electives for next year. Trampolining.
Oh man, the kids would love it though. I don't know how many times I've been asked this year. Can we take a field trip to Sky Zone. Like they just want to go
Just love jumping.
bounce and trail. So I
Yeah.
think you're onto something. I
True.
There's some
wouldn't
jumping.
stop
I
that
mean,
dream.
I'd love for them. I mean, for certain kids, like like having a nutrition class might be a good idea, or
Mhm.
coupling that with like, okay, it's a gym type elective where you're doing nutrition and like weight room where they're starting to learn how to exercise because some kids are interested in that. And we do something in our school called Discovery Day where I think it's like 2 times a year, maybe 3, depending
I love
on
it.
if we can fit it. And it's where like we do a whole day, more like half a day, um, of like things that we teach them something that they wouldn't learn during the school day, like how to change a tire, how to
That's cool.
Jamie did one that's so basic, and she taught kids how to sew. Um, I have 2 therapy dogs, and my wife will come in with one of the dogs, and she'll talk about what it means to have a therapy dog. What do they do? And they get to learn some of the commands and do stuff like that. So that's fun and be able to do that, but like you can't do that every day.
Right.
But I wish
Oh,
there
if
were,
only we could.
yeah, I wish there were more electives for these kids to like blow off some steam. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, I hopefully I'm coming across the right way, but I would just
No,
want them to be able to like be able to relax a little bit and have that. And I don't know what and what does your school district do about it? Do they have blocks? Do they have periods
we
for
have
your
blocks.
for your
So
middle
we used to have ELA or language arts was always blocked. So ever since I've been teaching in the district, I've always had my beautiful little 90 minutes of reading and writing, and that's why they have blocked it. And now everything is, which is to kind of match the high school schedules as well. And so I think across the board, people are liking that. I think the kids like it too. Kind of streamlines their day a little bit. And in terms of electives, I feel like our kids, I mean, this is always cool to like hear people from different parts of the country even talk about what's available. I feel like our kids get quite a bit of choice in what I don't think anybody's, we don't have a dance class, but nobody's being like forced into electives for the most part, unless there's just, major scheduling issues.
I think it's rare cases that kids get forced, but there are a
Oh,
couple.
okay, good.
You know what I mean? That's what I think anyway. I mean, and I don't
Yeah.
do the scheduling, but I think there's
Yeah.
a couple kids that like, well, we couldn't really fit you anywhere else, so we got to give
Right.
you this one. You just said, I'm sorry I interrupted, but you also just said about to align with how long have you guys been blocked now that you said like
That's a good question. I think since COVID,
okay.
those years. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was when they decided to, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
kind
know
of
it
like
just all blends
blocked
together, doesn't it?
some of that out a little bit.
I know. We
But
were trying to figure out when our district went 1-to-1 recently, and it was like,
I was like, "Oh yeah,
you know,
2008." I'm like,
yeah.
Jamie's like, "What? No, it wasn't. It was." I was like, "No, yes, it
yeah.
I
was."
was like, our kids were born in
And meanwhile,
2008.
like I did technology,
Yeah,
stuff in the district. Like I helped
yeah.
them choose. Like we looked at different Chromebooks. And we're like, "Oh, this one's
Uh-huh.
good." Like there was a small group of us that did like some technology trainings in the district, and they asked us for our opinion. And then, um, and then I didn't even remember when that was because all the time just kind of blends itself together.
How
Um,
much of the day do your students spend on a device?
oh, good question.
Ooh, that is a good question. I think it depends on the class.
Mm.
A- and really just what they're doing. I'm just trying to think. I mean, in my own ELA class, I've been doing more of the writing instruction. I have a teaching partner that, because there's always two ELA teachers on a team, because it was the split reading and, you're teaching both subjects. Um, and so we've kind of divided and conquered a couple things. So it's when they're writing and they're typing, like I feel a lot. They're on there a whole bunch, but or research, they're on there a lot. Um, but we try to be mindful, especially even with sixth grade, like try to, how much can we pull them off of it a little bit?
That's interesting.
Just to teach the basics of like how to function with this device in your hands, and at your will at all times, because that's part of it too, is just learning how to have the self-control to
Yes.
utilize it properly.
Yeah, we just took a journey in our school where we were challenged to have no technology with the children,
Mm.
and so we went. about 2.5 weeks, and then we're given the option. Well, originally it was supposed to be the entire month of January, and then it went 2.5. She kind of shortened it a little bit. And so I teach a 6th grade ELA class. I'm just covering right now because my original roots were ELA, and then my other degree was in history, and I was like, I'm out of here. Like when the test got really crazy, so I was like, social studies, where you can
Mhm.
really like enjoy teaching and you don't have quite as much of the same stress and pressure.
Right.
And yeah, so this year I'm teaching an ELA class for the first time in 10 years, and I'm teaching a 6th grade class. And in comparison to my 8th graders, we're still, today was like one of the first times since before Christmas break that we use the computer.
Wow.
And I wanted to do something for Black History Month, like very specifically. I have a YouTube channel, and I've made like a lot of videos, like specifically for kids on my school YouTube channel. And I was like, oh, I really like, oh, can I not? And it was like, no, we're doing it. We're going for it. Sorry. And they were like, what's happened? Like they
Wow.
just couldn't believe it
That's
because it's
awesome.
been so long. But there is a very distinct difference in the impulsivity and behavior in my 6th grade with the device that's not the same with my 8th graders. They're like much more likely to understand like when they're using it. It's not that
Mhm.
like open shut, open shut, open shut. Where the
Yes.
6th graders are just like look, and it's like it's not even on. What are you looking like? Why are you doing that? So it was different. The 2 years of an age difference is wild.
How did your students respond to the no device
There
challenge?
I don't think it really see, this is something we actually
My
talked
8th
about.
graders, I teach 4 sections of 8th grade, and there's about, like, 20 to 25 kids. I would say overwhelming majority in all of our conversations were like, "Please don't bring them back."
Yeah.
Wow.
They were like, "Who we don't care." Um,
It doesn't really make there are a lot of things that we've talked about on our episodes where, like, we've talked about gamification in the classroom, which,
right.
like and
Mhm.
I don't mean this since we are just meeting and talking, Courtney, like, I've done a lot of work with educational technology, and I worked within district to help train people and do a whole bunch of stuff, but, like, I have walked back a lot of technology use for these reasons because they're not able to have conversations. The devices are overused. A lot of teachers are doing GimKit and Blookit and Edpuzzle, and which are all great platforms, but when you're doing one after the
Mhm.
other, after the other, after the other, and it's just headphones, staring at a device, and you're not interacting, talking, discussing, doing anything with them that's engaging at all, like, how would you expect them to
Right.
behave in that moment? Like, I wouldn't wanna sit there for an hour and just be taught by a computer. So I wanna do things that are more engaging and thought-provoking and, interesting to
Yeah.
them, which we try to
In
do.
contrast to that, though, like, I absolutely love, like, when you said one of the things that you do is project-based learning. I am all in on every aspect of that, and so one of my there's 3 of us that teach 8th grade, and one of the, like, younger I love when someone is young and shiny. I want to be blinded by your youth. I want to be, like, absolutely, like, that is what I'm always, like, seeking, like, "What can we do and what can we try?" And after a while, like, I was like, "I'm getting old, I'm tired, like, I'm running out of ideas," right? So, I was kept looking and looking like, "Come on, uh, blind me with your shininess." And so I have this colleague and he is, I always joke, I'm like, "I could be your mom." He's like, "You'd have a very different life." And it's like, "But yeah, but I could." And so he was like, "I think we should do." So we right now are in in the midst of this mega project where we decided we were taking every one of the 8th grade classes that we each teach the same periods, and we combine them, and they could choose who they wanted to work with, and they're all the same over like broad topic, and everyone has to create something and then present it to everybody else.
That's pretty
And
cool.
it's really neat, and we're like, "Mega project," and today we actually just started it, and it's so exciting, and it was like, "Shh, everybody, shh." But, they did have devices, but there was just so much healthy talk going on, like, amongst all of these kids who just now were mashed among 3 different classes. It was really cool.
That's
I
cool.
was
Yeah,
like, "This is awesome."
they
Yeah.
do a great job with that. Their creations projects, which is an awesome thing to do, and you can do that in the 8th grade. And you can't do that with 7th graders because when you have 7th graders, we're more focused on like, I don't like it's just routine, making sure that we're setting norms for like who's supposed to do what while we're doing group work, like setting up what those roles are. So then hopefully when they get to the 8th grade, they have that set up and they're able to work in that thriving environment, which is great. They put together some really cool stuff. And the kids that don't put in the effort don't put together some really cool stuff. Like, James,
Yeah.
there's good projects and bad ones.
Yeah.
So
I
it's just
think when you give them the opportunity to share it though, like, because we did something similar on our team where they created an invention. Like they had to solve a problem, created an invention. And it's,
nice.
you have the wide range of, the ones that are like actually going to solve a world problem and some that, are going to do something very simple. But when they have to take the ownership and not just share to adults, I don't think they really care what we think, but to each other, it was a lot of fun just to watch them. And then also just to get either like, that pride of these kids thought this was cool, this thing that I made. So yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, peer-to-peer validation that's where
it's
it's
way
at.
more important. Let's be real.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because like they and when I hear a student say, "Wow, that was actually really like, oh, that was interesting." Like, "Oh, okay." So like you thought is something that someone did in your class was interesting today. That's
Mhm.
great. That's a win. It's a win
Yeah.
for everybody.
Absolutely.
So you act well, I mean, not to change gears, but in one of your and we talked about how middle school is the same all around, right? But not,
Mhm.
the same, different.
Yeah.
You have an interesting thing that's coming up that Jamie, I have already lived through, and Jamie is in the process of living through, which would be you teach middle school all day, and then you go home to middle school all night, and it's middle school all day, all night. And
Yeah.
because on one of your recent posts, you were like, "Oh, at your daughter's school," and you're like, "Wait a minute, she's going to be in the 6th grade. I teach 6th
Mhm.
grade. This is going to be like this all the time." Um, we hopefully will be able to provide you in this next segment of our meeting. We'll hopefully be able to provide you a little bit of advice, which
Give me the
is
advice. I'm going to write it down.
sure. Do you have a shed? Because I would move into it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
do. But
and
there
we're
are
done.
mice in there. I'm not moving.
And we're done here. Okay. No. So,
It depends on the kid, right? Like
yeah, it really does.
like Joe's children and my older child are the same age. So they're all juniors in high school. And their COVID year was like the March of 6th
Yes.
grade, and then they missed 7th grade.
I got
at the
very lucky. I
I
feel
mean,
very lucky.
we
No,
were
I'm
like,
dead honest.
"Sure." Yes. And I can remember like saying like, "You guys don't understand like how this is the best year to if you had
Mhm.
right? It's like if we did a poll, like if
100%.
a year of school you need to miss,
7th grade.
7th grade. And so there was, there was a lot coming back from that, obviously, from 8th grade. And we could kind of see even like socially, they lost like that interaction time of like where you work some of those things out and whatever. So it shook out, thank goodness. And then last year, I have twin girls and they went to middle school last year. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening in this house. And part of it was also the difficulty of every single teacher that they had, whether the person had been teaching for 30 years or 30 minutes, had a new schedule.
Oh,
Yes.
so it was new for everyone.
It was
Yes.
new for everybody. And, so how difficult that transition to
Mhm.
6th grade is to begin with. And now we have, 6 different teachers. And if you had a journalism class and then you also had your, Spanish class, so you just had work and work and work and work and work. And it was just so many things. But I have mentioned this before. So if I'll just tell you this little piece of advice because it's been working so much better this year. And part of it could just be like their own maturity and they've acclimated also. But what I realized was it was so overwhelming for them to go from like the traditional classroom with one teacher, maybe they, popped into music or gym or whatever. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden now you have this barrage of like various adults with kids who, sometimes they follow the rules in one class and then they don't, and you're mixing in lockers and all that. So they would come out of school or out of their club or whatever activity and just like of like just dump
Courtney, this is the greatest advice. I'm
dumping
dead
on me,
serious.
dumping, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't know what's happening." And maybe that and then it's like, in part, they still listen, like, "Oh, my mom knows stuff," and then also part it's like, "My mom is so dumb."
She's
So there was right, like, she doesn't know anything,
I don't know anything either.
And so this year I started, like over the summer, I made a decision and I was like, this is what we're going to be doing. You can not complain about anything that happened in school until 6 p.m.
Ooh.
So you're going to come home from school and you are going to like walk on the treadmill. You're going to read a book. You're going to take the dog for a walk or just make out with her on the couch. I don't know. You are going to do whatever you could possibly do to like decompress from your day. And then if it's still something that's really like it's grinding your gears, then we'll really sit and we'll talk about it. 9 times out of 10, like no one, it's like not a thing. They've forgotten all about it. Now,
It
usually
wasn't that big of a deal.
it wasn't that big of a deal. They just needed like perspective, at like a moment to step away from it and just sort of unwind and be in the house. And I would be like, oh my God, like all worked up. And then I'd be like, and they'd be like, what? Oh, yeah, no. They were like over it.
And
So
I
yeah.
think the greatest thing there
That's
too
nice.
is like, knowing Jamie's husband, I know that he will listen, but he'll be like, okay. But like you, of course, become the lightning rod for all of the angst and anxiety where everyone wants to talk to mom, they want to talk to you, they want to talk it through, they want to have so like you come home from your day and it's 3:40 and it's and you're like, I have decision fatigue already. Like I can't make any more decisions. So that also gives her a little bit of space while her kids are also learning how to deal with those things internally that
Mhm.
are, challenging for kids at
Yeah.
that age. So
And
like,
it's a
look,
lot. There have been
yeah,
a couple of instances. I mean, and we're already, more than halfway through the year. There have been a couple of instances where like it really was an immediate, like right in the car, I have to tell you
Sure. Yeah.
something. And I also felt like that was a huge win because you're now realizing like what are true defining issues and what
yes,
is
Mhm.
just like and recently one of them said to me, 85% of all adult conversation is just complaining. And she said it with like such authority. And I was like, is that true? But also, it sounds right.
Now that I think about it, yeah.
I
yeah,
was like, huh, how interesting. Well, not in this house until 6 p.m.
yeah.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, we really did get lucky, it having that 7th grade year, but, like, there is such a difference, and you've probably I hope that you've seen it, Courtney, like, there's such a difference between a 7th grader and an 8th grader, and there was a number of years earlier in my career that I was teaching 7th and 8th grade. I was a split team, so I would teach 7th grade, and then some kids I would have again in the 8th grade, and you'd be like, "Ooh, I would have this kid again," and then,
Mhm.
like,
Different kid.
they're a completely different kid because there's they are hormonal because their bodies are going through changes. Their prefrontal cortex is still developing because they are little balls of emotion. They're realizing that they like boys or girls or both or whatever, whatever you do,
All the
okay,
things.
all the things, loving all the things. But it's like it's just it's a very difficult time, but a lot of times, like, that summer between the 7th grade and the 8th grade year, it's just like that switch goes off, their bodies start to level off, and they start to learn things about themselves in regards to and even, like, the immature 8th graders just haven't
Mhm.
reached that point yet.
And
So
that is one thing I'm loving about what we're doing currently. And 2 or 3 years ago, I was able when I moved up from 7th to 8th grade, um, I was able to loop with some of my kids. So, yeah, some of those, boys that were this tall, at the beginning of 7th grade, and then at the end of 8th grade, they're a foot taller than
giants.
me. But just to see them grow, like, as people I was like, "This is awesome." And so, the model we're in currently is set up for us to loop with them. So this is our 2nd year. So yes, we are seeing, our current 8th graders we had last year as 7th graders. And our current 7th graders, next year we will have had them all 3 years. And it's really, really cool. That's been probably my favorite part. Because the growth and just maturity, that, of some of the kids you wouldn't expect to like mature so much in
Exactly. Yep.
6 months or 8 months. It's like, oh, look at you. And then I know like some of them, we're planting seeds and hopefully, when they're sophomores or juniors or whatever, they might figure it out, but at least now we can love the heck out of them while they're there.
Yeah.
Are your
So
kids also do you work in the same district where your kids go to school?
same district, but
Same.
they won't go to the same school.
Yep, same. It was the same for me. I did work in the school that they wound up going to, so I didn't know a lot of so I wound up going to a different middle school. Um, which I kind of was like, I kind of was, not that I was hoping would happen, but I'm happy that it happened because I didn't want to be in the same building as them.
Yeah, I've been on the
I
fence.
didn't
So
want
some
to be.
kids,
I didn't
people have
want to be.
asked me, like, "Will you
Um,
bring your kids to our school?" And I'm like, "Well, I
and
I do like them being on their own, like, forging their own,
yeah. Are
way."
can I ask how old your kids are, if you don't mind? How many?
No, 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 there's 10, 8, and a 3, so almost they're
Oh,
all spring
okay.
babies. I did the typical teacher thing where it was like, "Let's have all of them in the spring so I can have a really long maternity leave." Um, but then not realizing that we would have birthday season from, like, March. I mean, it's boom, boom, but we just have so
Yeah.
many. So
Birthday
anyway,
season.
yeah, they're
So
almost 11, almost 9, almost 4.
the
Courtney, in the beginning of our chat today, you said, "I love my job," which is
Mhm.
not something that you said, "I love my job. I love the people I work with." That's not something that we hear that often,
correct.
unfortunately, from teachers.
Mhm.
What do you think it is that is keeping you 16 years in loving your job?
Ooh, I mean, I think I love the age group. Like, I knew even in college when I declared well, I changed my major, but then when I declared it, I was like, "I'm gonna do middle school." And people around me were like, "That's very specific and strange that you would choose that." But I just feel like it's such a fun, impressionable age. So I think first of all, it's finding your fit, whether it's elementary or high school or reading specialist, like figuring out where, your gifts and talents are best, served. So finding your place. And I know I feel really fortunate. I've only worked in 2 school buildings and both of them have been wonderful. I've had great coworkers, I've had a supportive admin. So I feel like I don't have a lot to complain about. I know for a lot of people that's not the case. And they, have to struggle through the system of their own building, not just the day-to-day stuff. But I also find, like, if I'm not laughing, like, if I cannot laugh with every single class every single day, then I have to pause and figure out what the heck's going on. Because if it's the curriculum's too serious or like I'm too set on goals that really, sometimes you just have to stop and realize these are people, they're fun people. They're in the weirdest stage of their life. And
Yeah, girl.
you just have to find fun, even if that means, you have to put curriculum on the back burner for 5 minutes, okay. Like, if it's gonna bring some joy into your classroom, you have to do it.
That's
I
a
love
great
that.
statement. That's awesome.
It is.
And
It
so
is.
my last piece of advice for you, which you're gonna have a lot of middle school coming through with a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and then a 3-year-old.
Yes,
Be a lot.
we'll be in it
But
for a while.
by the time that third one gets there, you're gonna be like, "Yeah,
I
you
know.
do you, buddy." But what you can do is you can say when your children are being outlandish or ridiculous or messing around with you or not behaving, just be like, "Hey, you know what? I can make that into a bit and just put that on my channel."
I know.
And, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have to name names, but I'm sure everyone's gonna be able to figure it out because that is a huge trump card to be able to pull, be like, "Hey, here's my couple thousand followers that are gonna know everything about you. And oh, by the way."
I know. I'm super weird about not weird, but, like, having my own kids. So, they're asked, like, "Can we be in one of your videos?" And I
Oh,
get that weird,
I'm
like,
just saying acting like them. It's like,
"Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I'll do
Oh,
that."
yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, that
There
was a very
and
poignant.
also, I mean,
Yeah.
on that note, I don't know if this matters, but I also just with my Instagram account, that was the one thing that I didn't want my own students who, yes, they, like, find me and follow me, whatever, that's fine. Um, I didn't want it to become a way to call out kids either
Yeah.
Yeah.
for specific things, like if something obnoxious happens, to make a bit about it and then
Yeah.
everybody like, because I feel like kids have enough to deal with. They don't need their, like, teacher acting out their own, so usually my stuff is, like, very universal. If it's a specific middle schooler, it just means that it's all middle schoolers,
Exactly.
which is
Especially that kid that leaned in and
my
was like,
philosophy.
Do you have any Takis?" Kids are in the cafeteria like, "Ha, that's totally
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
That's you in
absolutely.
class
I
like
get
every
asked this
day."
all the time.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
But it's a good point that you make because there are a lot of accounts where it is just really, like, digging into, like, how it's terrible and awful and, like, why I quit or, like and that's not your
Yeah.
vibe, and that's where we come from also, so it is, like it's a really nice thing to say, like, "Yeah, it's funny, and it's ridiculous, but it comes from a place of love for them and for what you do, not that I want to tell everybody how awful it is all the time or how they're ruining my,
Of course there's moments. And then for that, I'm sure you guys, you've been doing this 20-something years, you've probably had those years where you're like, is this what I'm going, can I do this for the next however many?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And then the next year comes around and you're like, okay, I can do this. So, I get it. I get that sometimes there's just really rough patches, but I refuse to believe that that's forever. If it is forever, then obviously I need to find a different path. But so far it has not been. And you got to find the joy.
Yeah.
Well, as I want to thank you again for joining us. We had you scheduled, and then the schedule changed, and then it was like, hey, join us. And then I am an idiot and don't know time zones. And then we had to hop on and do everything.
And it worked out because it snowed, and then everything got canceled for me tonight. So it worked out.
Yeah, look at you. But no, Jamie, Courtney, I appreciate you. This is like our thing. This is what we do. So I appreciate you.
We appreciate you so much for being here. Joey, I appreciate you.
Yeah, buddy.
And being flexible and going for it. And everybody that enjoys a laugh needs to check out Courtney Varner's very complicated Instagram that has been scrolling. Hi, it's me. This is the underscore.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be linked. It'll be linked in our episode description below on all the usual channels.
Yes.
And thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Balancing Act podcast.
Thank you.
Bye.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.